The courtroom felt cold and unforgiving as the poor single father stood alone before the bench, his worn jacket hanging loosely on his thin frame, his tired eyes fixed on the floor. The judge's brief laugh cut through the silence, sharp and careless, echoing like a slap across the room. It was the kind of laugh that told everyone exactly what he thought of the man standing there. Another failure, another case not worth taking seriously. But in that very moment, with that single sound, something unseen began to shift, and within seconds, the same courtroom that mocked him would be frozen in shock. Before the story pulls you deeper, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in stories that restore faith in humanity, please like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel Ripple of Kindness. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The man's name was Daniel Harper, a 34-year-old single father who had learned to survive on very little. Life had not broken him all at once. It had chipped away at him slowly. First came the accident that took his wife, then the medical bills that swallowed his savings, and finally the job layoffs that left him choosing between rent and groceries. Every morning he woke before sunrise to pack a simple lunch for his young daughter, tying her shoes with hands that still smelled faintly of factory grease from night shifts he no longer had. He never complained. He never begged. He only did what needed to be done. The case itself seemed small to everyone else. A missed payment, a minor legal violation tied to paperwork Daniel barely understood. To the court, it was routine. To Daniel, it was terrifying. Losing this case meant fines he could not afford, and worse, the possibility of losing custody of the only person who gave his life meaning. He stood there not as a man defending himself, but as a father silently fighting for his child's future. The judge, comfortable in authority and routine, glanced at Daniel's file and saw nothing remarkable. A poor man, no lawyer, no polished appearance. When Daniel tried to explain himself, his voice came out uneven, heavy with exhaustion. He spoke about late nights, about caring for his daughter alone, about trying to keep his life from collapsing. The judge's smile tightened, then slipped into a brief laugh, not cruel enough to be obvious, but dismissive enough to wound. A few people in the room shifted uncomfortably. Others looked away. Daniel felt his chest tighten, but he did not react. He did not raise his voice or show anger. Years of struggle had taught him something powerful. Dignity did not come from being believed, but from standing firm even when you were not. He straightened his shoulders and continued, explaining how he had tried to follow every rule, how a single misstep had spiraled beyond his control. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear of punishment, but from the fear of failing his daughter. As he spoke, something changed in the room. The laughter faded. The air grew heavier. The judge, expecting excuses, began to hear something else entirely: consistency, responsibility, and sacrifice. Daniel mentioned the letters he had sent, the calls he had made, the extra shifts he had taken before his job disappeared. He mentioned nights sleeping in his car so his daughter could have a bed. He never asked for sympathy. He simply told the truth. Then came the moment no one expected. A court officer stepped forward quietly with additional documents that had arrived late, records Daniel himself had submitted but were never reviewed. They showed proof of payments made, dates logged, efforts documented. They showed a man who had done everything within his limited power to comply, and a system that had failed to notice. The judge's expression changed instantly. The smile vanished. The laughter felt suddenly out of place, almost shameful. The courtroom fell silent as the weight of realization settled in. This was not a careless man. This was not someone looking for shortcuts. This was a father who had been running uphill with a child on his back while the world kept pushing him down. The judge leaned forward now, no longer distant, no longer amused. His voice, when he spoke again, carried a different tone, slower, more deliberate, touched by something like respect. The ruling that followed did more than dismiss penalties. It acknowledged effort. It recognized humanity. The court not only cleared Daniel of wrongdoing, but connected him with legal aid and community support programs that could help him rebuild. The judge's earlier laughter now stood in sharp contrast to the gravity of his decision, a reminder of how quickly judgment can blind us. Daniel did not smile or celebrate. He simply closed his eyes for a brief moment, as if releasing a breath he had been holding for years. His daughter would be safe. That was all that mattered. As he left the courtroom, people who had ignored him before now watched in quiet reflection. Some lowered their heads, others felt a lump in their throats. Outside, sunlight spilled across the steps, warm and forgiving. Daniel paused, feeling it on his face, thinking of the simple dinner he would cook that night and the story he would read before bed. His life was still hard. Nothing magical had erased his struggles. But something important had changed. He had been seen. And sometimes being seen is the first step toward healing. If this story has started to move you, stay with it. Because moments like these remind us how powerful empathy can be when we choose it over judgment. Near the end of the day, as Daniel walked away from the courthouse, the judge remained seated inside, staring at the empty room. The laughter echoed faintly in his memory, no longer amusing but instructive. A single moment of arrogance had nearly crushed a man who deserved understanding. That realization would stay with him far longer than the case itself. Before this story ends, I have one special request. Please comment the word kindness below if you believe that compassion can change lives. And if this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something real, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your engagement tells us that stories like Daniel's matter, and that empathy still has a place in this world.